Untouchables or the Children of India's Ghetto by Ambedkar. Part 3, Chapter 10 Hindus and their Want of Social Conscience. Everyone who feels moved by the deplorable condition of the untouchables begin by saying, "We must do something for the untouchables." One seldom hears any of the persons interested in the problems by saying, "Let us do something to change the Hindu." It is invariably assumed that the object to be reclaimed is the untouchables, as though untouchability was due to his depravity, and that he alone is responsible for his condition. If there is to be a mission, it must be to the untouchables. Nothing requires to be done to the Hindu. He is sound in mind, manners, and morals. He is whole. There is nothing wrong with him. He is not the sinner. What is the real state of affairs? This argument that there is nothing wrong with the Hindu and that the untouchable is responsible for whatever wrong he suffers is very much the argument that is used by the Christians for defending themselves against the inhuman treatment accorded by them to the Jews. A very crushing reply has been given by Mr. Louis Golding to the Christians on behalf of the suffering Jews. In discussing the source of the Jewish problem, Mr. Louis Golding says, "I beg leave to give a very homely instance of the sense in which I consider the Jewish problem in a sense a Gentile problem. A close acquaintance of mine is a certain Irish terrier of mixed pedigree, the dog Paddy, who is to my friend John Smith as an apple of both his eyes. Paddy dislikes Scotch terriers. It is enough for one to pass within 20 yards of Paddy to deafen the neighborhood with challenges and insults. It is a practice which John Smith deplores, which therefore he does his best to check. All the more as the object of Paddy's detestation are often inoffensive creatures who seldom speak first. Despite all his affection for Paddy, he considers, as I do, that Paddy's unmannerly behavior is due to some measure of original sin in Paddy. It has not yet been suggested to us that what is here involved is a Scotch Terrier problem, and that when Paddy attacks a neighbor who is peacefully engaged in expecting the evening smells, it is the neighbor who should be arraigned for inciting to attack by the fact of his existence. If we equate Paddy to the Hindu and Scotch Terrier to the untouchable, the argument for Golding will apply to the Hindus no less than it does to the Christians. If, for the reasons given by Mr. Golding in the Jewish problem, is in reality a Christian problem, then the problem of the untouchables is primarily a Hindu problem. Are the Hindus conscious? Do they recognize that the untouchables are a problem to them? Are they worried about it? Is it weighing on their minds? Certain obvious tests may be applied in order to ascertain the truth. One test is the volume of literature on the subject. One can take the volume of literature issued on the blacks of America as a standard measure. One is amazed at the huge amount of printed material that exists in the United States on the subject of the blacks. It is said that the really complete bibliography of the black problem would run up to several 100,000 titles. The literature is really immeasurable. This proves, as nothing else can, how much it is a problem to the whites. It has disturbed through several generations all classes of people in America: the religious moralists, the political philosophers, the statesmen, the philanthropists, the social scientists, the politicians, the businessmen, and the plain ordinary citizen as well. What is the amount of literature on the untouchables that exist in India? Not more than half a dozen pamphlets. Another test would be the test of social behavior. I give below two cases reported in the papers. One is from the Pratap of 5th March 1926. It gives the following news. On the 23rd of February at about 11 o'clock in the day, a group of about 12 or 13 were digging earth in Begumganj, Lucknow, when the quarry collapsed and they were all buried between heaps of earth. One boy and 6 women were rescued after the earth had been removed, out of whom only one woman turned out to be alive, who belonged to Mirpur. She had received grievous injuries and her condition was very critical. The Hindu inhabitants of Begumganj, however, refused to give a bed to lay that woman on. At last, a Muslim offered a bed. Now there was no Hindu prepared to help to carry the woman as far as her house. At last, a sweeper was called, and he undertook to carry the woman to her home, as she lay on the bed. The best illustration of the absence of conscience in the Hindu towards the untouchables is to be found in the following incident, which is reported by the correspondent on the Sangram and published in its issue on 10th July 1946. The correspondent says, a woman died on the 8th of July 1946 in the Anath Ashram beggar's home called Azil, situated in a village called Mahapse in Goa and maintained by Christians. The woman was believed to be a Hindu. She was alone and had no relations. Seeing that there was no one to dispose of the dead body and to perform funerary rites, the Hindus of the village came together and raised a subscription for the purpose. They brought the dead body out of the beggar's home. Just about that time, some untouchables who knew the woman came there and recognized the dead body. The moment the Hindus came to know that the women belonged to the untouchables, the Hindus who had gathered there deserted the dead body and started walking away. The untouchables who had come requested the Hindus to give them the amount they had collected for buying the coffin and the shroud. The Hindus refused to part with the money, saying that the money was collected from the subscribers on the representation that the deceased woman was a Hindu. As she is not a Hindu but an untouchable, they can't spend their money on her funeral. The untouchables had to do their best to dispose of their dead body. The untouchables had good evidence of the love and affection the Hindus bear toward them. The following is from the Milap of 2nd October 1925. Its correspondent reports, news has been received from Rudraprayag that one evening in the first week of September, a Dalit came to the Dharmshala or monastery of Rudraprayag. When he learnt that tiger came there every night, he requested the pastor of the Dharmshala to let him lie hidden in some corner of the Dharmshala for the night, so that he may remain safe from the tiger. The callous pastor, however, paid no heed to the request and closed the gates of the Dharmshala. The ill-starred Dalit laid himself down outside in one corner, full of apprehensions of the tiger. Towards the end of the night, the tiger came and attacked the Dalit. As the man was quite strong and healthy, and despair made him fearless, he caught hold of the tiger's neck and shouted, I have grabbed the tiger, come and kill him. But the high caste pastor did not open the door, nor did he offer any sort of help, so that very soon the grip of the Dalit loosened and the tiger also ran away. At present, the man is lying wounded in Srinagar, Garhwal, where he is getting himself treated. His condition is said to be critical. The heartlessness disclosed by these instances shows that the Hindu does not bother about what he does to the untouchables or about what happens to the untouchables. A third test would be the test of service and sacrifice for the upliftment of the untouchables. Here again, one may adopt the service and sacrifice of the Americans for raising the blacks as our standard measure. Here are some figures. Consider the requests made by the whites for the benefit of the black. Education. Testator amount, testator amount. Kane 50,000, Mason 1 million. Harton 5,000, Nonbert 40,000. Trotton 1 million, Harrison 200,000. Ottinger 500, Munger 75,000. Gambrill 35,000, Corliss 45,000. Jerepke 1,000, Rosenbanian 1,000. Strock 500, Burton 1,000. Kidder 5,000, Conroy 100,000. Clodid 10,000, Kent 10,000, Wood 500, Duke 140,000, Harkness 1 million, Massiliot 5,000, Beatty 290,000, Macy 25,000, Marquand 5,000, Nicholas 20,000, Newton 5,000, Garretson 15,000, 1 million, Hummington 25,000, Hatcher 20,000, Phelps Stokes 200,000, Wright 10,000, Butler 30,000. These figures relate to the period before 1930. They do not take into account the residuary bequests. Compare the educational funds that exist for the advancement of education among the blacks. They are the Avery Fund the Villas Bequest, the African Fund, the Buckingham Fund, the George Washington Educational Fund, the Minor Fund, the Stewart Missionary Foundation, the Daniel Hand Fund, the John Slater Fund, the Phelps Stokes Fund. In addition to this, there are several general funds such as the Carnegie Corporation's Julius Rosenwald Fund and the Rockefeller Foundation, which also help the blacks. The amounts distributed by these funds is not known, but they must be amounting to millions. Compare the amount spent by religious organizations on the education of the blacks. Here are some interesting figures. Name, annual expenditure, permanent fund for the blacks, value of school, American Baptist Home Mission Board, 100,000, 1 million, 3 million. American Church Institute, 100 million, 400 million, 3 million. Episcopal Church, 300,000, 3 million, 3 million. Church of Christ Disciples United, 90,000, nil, 500,000. Christian Missionary Society, nil. Lutheran Evangelical Synodical Conference of North America Board Colored Commission, 74,000, 100,000. Methodist Episcopal Church Board of Educational Institution for the Blacks, 200,000, 1 million, 5 million. Methodist Episcopal Church Women's Home Missionary Society of 100,000, 300,000. Presbyterian Church in the USA Division of Missions for Colored People, 400,000, 2 million, 3 million. United Presbyterian Church Board of Mission for Free Men, 98,000, 600,000, 1 million. It is estimated that the total amount spent for the religious and philanthropical organizations between 1865 and 1930 comes to $100 million on the advancement of the blacks. Of this account, 85 million have been contributed by the whites. What is the measure of service and sacrifice of the Hindus for the elevation of the untouchables? The only organization that the Hindu can boast of is the H-word Sevak Sangh. Its capital fund does not probably go beyond 10 lakhs. Its annual expenditure does not go beyond a few thousand rupees on petty and insignificant and insubstantial purposes. The fund is not a welfare fund. It is essentially a political fund intended to make the untouchables vote with the Hindus. Why is this different? Why do the Americans exert so much service and sacrifice for the elevation of the blacks, and why the Hindus care to do nothing for the elevation of the untouchables? The answer is that the Americans have a social conscience, while the Hindus have none. It is not that the Hindus have no sense of right and wrong, good and bad, moral and immoral. What is wrong with the Hindu is that his sense of moral obligation towards others is restricted to a limited class of people, namely the members of his caste. As Mr. H. J. Payton says, clearly a man may be a good member of a limited society without being a morally good man. There seem indeed to be already shadows or anticipations of moral excellence even in the man who carries out coherently an individual policy of life, and we begin to find them something which we may almost mistake for virtue itself when we consider the man who is a loyal member of any society, even of a gang of thieves. Yet, although there must be honor among thieves, a thief is not therefore an honorable man. The morally good man seems to be the man who is good as a member not of a limited society but of an unlimited society, of a society of societies whose purpose includes all purposes and beyond which there is no other society to be a source of conflicting claims of duties. The untouchable does not belong to the society of the Hindus, and the Hindu does not feel that he and the untouchables belong to one society. This is the reason why the conduct of the Hindu is marked by a moralistic unconcernedness. Not having conscience, the Hindu has no such thing in him as righteous indignation against the inequities and injustices from which the untouchable has been suffering. He sees no wrong in these inequities and injustices and refuses to budge. By his absence of conscience, the Hindu is a great obstacle in the path of the removal of untouchability. The end.